everybody, and welcome to the Fart Fetish Podcast once again. We've got another great episode for you today, but before that, the Fart Fetish Podcast is available on fartfetishpodcast.com and almost all major podcast platforms. Look for new episodes on the first Friday of every month. You can also enjoy fart stories, fart captions, and fart videos at thefartcloset.com and support the podcast at the same time. That's thefartcloset.com. And that's it for the intro. And now I'd like to introduce Master Jayden to the podcast. Master Jayden is a video creator and bisexual fart fetishist that's on today to talk about many important topics, including NPC video commenters, OnlyFans and marketing. And we both share some ideas on male self-image and the toxic influencers that have exploited disaffected men. We've got that and more on this episode of the Fart Fetish Podcast. Thanks very much for being here, Jayden. Why don't we start with a little about yourself and what this fetish kind of looks like for you?
All right. Well, I'm Master Jayden, and I've kind of been in the fart community for about, I want to say, I've been tumbling around as just a person on Kick and stuff for a few years, but I've actively started making videos about a year ago. Actually, Josh the Farter, he was friends with a friend that I met, and he's kind of the one that got me started with making videos and stuff and encouraged me. It just kind of blew from there, and ever since then I created a following for myself who are very loyal and very good. But the fetish for me has kind of always been there as a child. I want to say it almost came about when I was a young child, because my brother would have friends over and they would kind of fart on me and stuff. Just fart humor in my household was always very very prominent. So I think maybe that has something to do with it. And of course the cartoons and stuff I grew up with, because I grew up in the 2000s, so that's probably where a lot of that came from as well. But it was always kind of there. I just don't really know the point where I started to find sexual arousal for it.
Yeah, for sure. As someone who's also had it early on, there's a second discovery in terms of you have the fetish in your younger years, but you don't know what sex is. You don't really know what sexuality is. You're just kind of following this instinct. And then later, maybe you find, for me, it was finding a fart message board. I think it was the Queen of Lizzie message board was one of the early ones back in the day. And then, other forms came about as well and came and went and what have you. But some people, I think it's porn. Some people, there's many different ways, but there's that second realization that this is my version of sex, or this is another pleasure I get in addition to sex.
Yeah. For me, I started on YouTube when I started. Obviously, it was real life, having fantasies. Then as I got a bit older, I still didn't know what sex is, and I didn't know what that feeling was. But I used to go to YouTube videos, and that's back when kind of YouTube was very, they weren't as hard when it came to demonetizing and censorship. So a lot of the old fart videos that you might remember were still on there, or even just comedic videos were there. And that's kind of where I got my pleasure before I started moving into other areas and talking to other people.
Yeah. I had the similar Newgrounds and other sites, YouTube as well. But I don't think I spent too much time on YouTube. But Newgrounds I did.
Yeah.
And they had the one I mentioned on Twitter recently to somebody who had asked, Victoria, who had asked actually, was the Oops, I Farted Again. It was a Britney Spears parody animation. And it was quite prominent back in the day. What kind of aspects or themes would you say, or around this fetish, do you enjoy, or have it combined with the fart fetish for you?
Well, I feel for me, it was all about the attitude and kind of how, I guess Damien talked about in his interview a while ago, kind of the link to masculinity and stuff like that, and how it just kind of combined it, which I always found very interesting because growing up, it was always funny for a lot of people. But it was always considered ew, that's gross. If my boyfriend constantly did that or whatever, it would be disgusting. And I just didn't see it that way. And I guess if I were to grow up, maybe knowing that those thoughts I was having weren't as foreign as I figured they would be, I'd feel better about myself, I guess. But yeah, I always linked it to that. You know what I mean? So that's kind of I guess the stereotypes we have, but also just the world I grew up in personally. That's what I experienced.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of stereotypes, I was going to say the experience you explain about kind of being bullied by your brother and his friends, or having them fart on you, whether it be bullying or not. I think many people's expectation for the origins of this fetish, and I mean, you're the first person I've heard on the show mention that. I'm sure there's people in the wild, or people other fetishists that have had that experience. But it's interesting because there is such a plethora of ways to get to this fetish that I think it really leads more credence to it being inborn. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Definitely, because there's some people I talk to and don't have that experience. For me to have that growing up is very rare. Um, but even then, there's people that do have that and don't have a fetish, I guess, as if I know of. But studies do show that they can come up during like a traumatic experience in your childhood, or like you're born with it, like your parents had it, or some sort of genetic thing. They haven't done a lot of studies on that, but that's where they're at the moment when it terms of figuring out how people develop fetishes like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was talking to somebody, I mentioned the idea that it's possible. I was talking to Damien, I think in DMs, was about the idea that previous generations may have had a fart fetish, but because there was no exploration of it, they may have never known it. And we're kind of the pioneers, as it were, in terms of uncovering this as a fetish, and maybe people will be able to trace it back. But as far as we know, like people explicitly saying, this is kind of the first of people like explicitly coming out and saying like, hey, I have a fart fetish for the first time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with the internet now, that we can find people that are like us without having to basically out ourselves, which is something that the older generation has never experienced. Like, especially the new generation, like the Gen Zs and millennials, like they're the first to actually go on websites, get pleasure, but also talk to other people. Like previous generations could never do that. So they either had to keep it completely to themselves, or they could tell the people around them that they trusted. But for us to be more connected than ever, I feel like it's helped a lot of people come out of their shell a bit, even if it just isn't with the people in their real life, day-to-day life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great point. That's a very great point about the internet opening that up. As I understand it, you're in a relationship that incorporates or involves fart fetish. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So I am dating my boyfriend Jeremy, who is Master Ass Rubber on Twitter. I actually knew who he was long before we started talking, because I would see his videos on Instagram. I would see his videos on Snapchat and stuff, and even on this vid, a lot of his videos are pirated, but they're there. And we started talking in January, or I want to say December of 21. And we just started talking as friends. And then eventually, like around July of 22, we became really close. And that's when we started dating. And it just kind of clicked. Like besides the fetish that we both shared with each other, we both shared each other's fantasies, but we just shared each other's like connection. And he actually liked me first, but I was kind of like approaching someone else at the moment. So then I began to, I guess, fall for him. And then we just kind of became a thing, and we're going on 6 months as of now. So it's been great. It's been great.
Well, that's awesome.
And it's something I always wanted.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. Congrats on that. And that is great that you had that connection. It seems like an emotional or spiritual, whatever you want to classify it as. That's great. Would you consider yourself like a pretty public person or private person about this fetish? Do you tell people like if sexuality comes into the conversation?
No, I do not. I guess now I'm becoming more confident of who I am and stuff. And I kind of said, well, I'm doing this for a while now out of OnlyFans, and people in my day-to-day life don't really know about it except for one person. Just one person. She's kind of a friend because she does kind of the same thing. But I kind of I'm like, you know what? If anyone of my family members and stuff find out, then I would want them to like, they might look at me a little bit weirdly, but maybe they'll understand. I try to make my space on the internet very positive and good and changing. So, but yeah, no one really knows. And I don't really feel the need to tell people. I never really felt the need to like go and tell people about my fetish. Of course, like I think it's good to open up people around you. But I think the internet replaced that so I can express myself, but no one really needs to know. I guess I would consider my boyfriend the one person in IRL that actually really knows.
Absolutely. So you do seem to have this mental separation between your private life and what I'm guessing is like your content creator life. Am I correct in that?
Correct. And a lot of it has to do with, because like I'm also a music artist as well. So with me doing music and producing for some people, like I kind of have to keep it separated. I would love to share my music with my fans on Twitter and stuff like that, which I probably am going to do if I just get everything correct and show the ones around me that it's not going to be horrible. Because one of my fears is my boyfriend's also a streamer on YouTube and stuff. He's a small streamer, but he has a decent little following. And he was telling me how he would love to incorporate his fans from the fetish over to his personal stuff. It's just the big issue with that is it would almost, I worry that it almost like hijack what we're doing and kind of make these people over sexualize what we're doing as well, or like expose us or something like that, which it'd be fun because, you know, the fans are already there, even though only probably 50% would actually go check out our stuff. But there's always that fear of like, what are they going to do? How are they going to react to it? Or just like, how are they going to perceive us as real people? So we try to make like a balance between personal and like normal life, which is what a lot of farters I've come to found do. I don't fake who I am, but I definitely I'm very personal.
Absolutely. No, it totally makes sense. And I get you. It's something I think we kind of implied with the last episode 13, where I talked to Dill about a somewhat need to level up the community in terms of social interaction and the way they engage, because as we explore on this show, we all are normal people and we have normal interests, which include, you know, music, video games, whatever. And there should be a way to be whole people. Like, this is not me saying, be more out about your fetish or whatever. All I'm saying is because I mean, I'll get into that in a second, but I don't know what it is, because it is an interesting question. I don't know if people can be leveled up, and when they want to be, obviously, but I don't know if they can be encouraged in that way, like a Pied Piper, making people want to become more, I guess, mature in online conversations, even when they involve sexual things. Or if it's just about cultivating a higher echelon of thinker in terms of people who have this fetish, but also know how to, like you and me, like all the people that have come on this show. Like none of the people that have been on this show have been only about farts. Sure, it's a big thing in their life, and that is most of what we talk about, but they're definitely whole people. So my I guess my encouragement to people listening and what have you is try to work on this introspection, or this ability to engage in a way that's not a pornographic focus. Like I went to, and I don't want to call out Gassy Erotica, but I did go to the forum recently to promote the podcast again. I have a thread there. And it does feel a bit Groundhog Day like, in terms of what kind of posts are going to be in that farting section, that main fart board. And it's just about videos or other models sharing content, finding content, pirated content, essentially. That's all. I'm very perturbed by that being the only kind of conversation the straight side of the fetish can have. Like, I'm envious in many ways of the gay fart fetish community, and I'm sure there are problems, but there's definitely a much larger willingness to have conversations and I think engage outside of the fart fetish. Like, as Dill says, and other guests have said, like, there are those creeps and the people that you don't want making comments and this and that. But I think there is more conversation happening as well, more deep conversation happening than you see in the straight side, unfortunately. And I hope that can change.
Yeah. And I feel like just we have a long ways to go for people starting to feel comfortable. And for example, it depends on what the fetish is. Like, I know a lot of people that will go out and say, oh, I have like a hair pulling fetish, I have a foot fetish. Fetishes that are like, I guess society would consider small, that are now become so normalized now that it's just like, okay, whatever, what else is new? And even like creators online, like the alphas or the mistresses, like they use that to their advantage to make money, which, I think they could be more incorporated inside of a community. But that just shows, like, when you have just like regular ass people that are like, I'm going to start selling my feet pictures online. That kind of shows you how normalized the fetish is. You don't really see anyone just sitting at a table and saying, I'm going to sell fart videos online, unless they're into the fetish. But the gay side has definitely became more, everyone kind of looks out for each other. Of course, there's drama, and with our farters, and I was incorporated in some of that, unfortunately. But one thing I found out with the straight side versus the gay side is that the gay side is very, we all kind of look out for each other, and we're always like kind of talking and stuff. And like, if someone's like starting something, I don't want to say get them, but we'll like call them out and hold them accountable. Where the straight side, it's kind of feel like more like I'm not in that, so I can't really speak too much on that. But like from what I see, kind of like taking and not really giving. Like a lot of men will like watch videos from females, buy videos from females, and she'll just be making money and probably not even remember the dude's name. So yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's hard. It is hard to cultivate a community, I think, in the straight side a little more, because sharing content, whether it be pirated or I draw art or whatever, like that's kind of the only thing the men kind of have to offer for each other. This is what in Dill's first episode, he was talking about the kind of power imbalance that exists on the straight side that may not exist as much on the gay side because all the men are into the farting on the gay side, whereas in many cases the women are probably not into farting. They may, be okay with it. They may incorporate it as part of their business offerings, but that is really as far as it goes. Like there's few female creators that are only fart content. There are some, I think, but most of them just have it as part of their business model, meaning they're catering to multiple fetishes and may not have any single one, but may be able to empathetically perform or do whatever is the client wants in that case to bring that fetish about. Whereas the gay side does seem to have a much more community of people who can actually, I can, fart on camera right now and send it to somebody as like an offering or an offering of friendship or whatever. And that can go, good or bad. It doesn't mean it's going to have necessarily work, but it is an exchange that I can't offer to other straight fetishists.
Yeah, certainly. And like I said, I am fortunate to be there because it's almost like just the sheerness of us both having the fetish is enough to understand each other and to be willing to trade videos. Like I don't have to convince someone to send me something and I don't have to send them money. Of course I could, but there's a lot of us in the gay side. There's a lot of us that make good content that is free. Some of us do have OnlyFans, which I also have. But even just on a regular basis, like a lot of us will be willing to give out free content that's good, whether that's online, privately through chats, like all that is just, it's very communal based and it's based on the sole fact as we both have the fetish and we can both help each other. Because it does get frustrating when you have to like beg someone to like give you something, I guess you could say, or to get pleasure out of it, or even just to talk to you. Like that shouldn't always be the case, but it is, unfortunately.
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, there's significantly more straight fart fetishists than there are female dominants or female farters in this case, as it were. It's just kind of the nature of it. I think that's why I speak to the importance of like if you're fine with porn and content, that's fine. But if you want to find a fetishist as a straight man, it will take talking about this fetish with people you become close to, your partners, what have you, and not hiding it. Because I mean, if it doesn't matter to you, then that's fine. But if it is something you want in your relationship, there's no other way to get it other than talk about it.
Certainly. And I've had that struggle too before I got into a relationship where I was already there. Like just, me being bisexual, of course, with most of the girls I tried dating, I didn't really bring it up because I'm not really into female farting. So that wasn't really a deal. But like some of my past boyfriends, I never really got a bad backlash. Some of them were just either like, I want to say they weren't really weirded out. I was with one guy who thought it was hilarious. And he was already a gassy guy to begin with, kind of, and he would fart around me just out of like comfort because he's like, oh, you're my boyfriend, you're gonna have to deal with my farting now. But I told him and he thought it was hilarious, which I thought was kind of adorable. And it kind of opened my eyes a bit, just how no one knows anything about this, because he asked me like sincere questions that kind of sounded at the time like arrogant, but they were sincere. So I was like, wait, so like what do you like about it? So it's like, so every time I fart you get like turned on or something? And he's like, wait, so like would you like me to fart on you? So like questions that to most of us are just like no brainers, but this is someone that's on the outside trying to figure out stuff. And I kind of sat with him and talked to him about it, and he somewhat understand, and then he eventually kind of did it for me, like not that often, but he did. And that's when I realized, like, wow, like I someone's trying to generally understand, but just the amount of cluelessness they have that we could educate people is just like, wow, okay, you know what I mean? It was kind of like eye-opening in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I could definitely understand that. So you did mention you're a creator on OnlyFans. Can Can you tell me more about that? Like what drew you to OnlyFans?
Oh my. Well, I eventually started selling videos online through Cash App and stuff, which became very tedious, and it still is because you have to track every single thing that you make. I'm not saying I really want to pay taxes for all of that, but you have to track every single thing that you make. You have to make sure you're communicating with everybody. You got to make sure you actually get your money. And I kind of did it as like, I didn't need money, but at the time they cut hours of where I was working before. So I just needed money to pay for stuff because it's expensive out here. And I'm 19 years old. I'm a student. I don't have that much money. So I was like, okay, I'll just do this kind of like a side hustle. And I kind of was joking with my friend, actually, like, what if I started OnlyFans? Of course, she didn't know about my fetish or what I was planning to do. But she was like, what if I made an OnlyFans? She was like, oh, that'd be fun. That'd be cool. I would support you. She doesn't know I have one. But that night, it was kind of like a joke and stuff. And I watched videos on the internet. They're mostly from females and stuff, like how to start an OnlyFans, how to promote it, how to price your stuff. And even though a lot of them had very little to do with what I actually wanted to do with my account, it definitely kind of helped. And then I eventually got serious about it and I made the account and people bought my stuff. There was a time where I did lose a lot of fans because I wasn't posting a lot, and I made the mistake of making things too pricey. Like my original price was $13 a month, and now it's $9. And one thing I realized about OnlyFans is that the lower your prices are, and it's actually really ironic, the more money you'll make. So as soon as I lowered it to $9 and started posting more, I got way more money than I ever have from it. And I was like, wow, okay. It's actually a very competitive market, but all my advice came from people that had OnlyFans, but they weren't. Like, I met a good friend, Chloe, who is a retired porn star, trans female. And her and a lot of other people told me was like, oh, make your prices high, know your worth. If you're making good content, make them very high. And the opposite for me happened. When I lowered my prices, I started getting more fans. And not only that, I made a better relationship with people. Because I did feel guilty putting stuff that high, because I know me personally, I don't really buy content. I don't subscribe to anyone's OnlyFans because I just don't. But I know for me, I would be really pissed to just pay that much for someone's stuff. So I would want it to be affordable for everybody. So that's kind of like what I was going on the mindset, and it just happened. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. It seems like there is a difference. I've never gone into the subscription model side, even as a producer. But yeah, I think there is a big difference between subscriber and selling it outright. What would you say like the ideal subscriber to you is? Like, how do they act? I suppose.
Ooh, I'd say like someone that subscribes every month. I communicate with, so they know me and I know them on somewhat of a personal level, even if they don't know like my actual name and stuff. Taking their request, which I kind of stopped doing. Like, I still take requests, but I get a lot of requests and messages a day from people asking me. Some of them are just arrogance, or like the people with the no profile picture saying I want you to do this, which I don't respond to those. But some of them are people that actually are subscribed that want me to do things, and I do some of them. But I make a lot of content, and like within a time span or even a day, that to go out of my way to make someone else something, I'll be like, okay, listen, I can put it on my OnlyFans because I'm already doing something like that, or you can buy it personally from me. So I love doing customs, but depending on what it is, it just becomes like, sometimes it's against my limits. Like, I get asked to do scat a lot, and I don't really like that, so I just kind of reject that. People are like, oh, I'll be willing to pay so much money, and it's like, I don't really believe that, because I know people that have gotten scammed off of that. Yeah, I take some requests if it's not out of my comfort zone, and if it's like if it's doable. But like, my good subscribers will understand that I'm sticking to the actual programming. But you will have very arrogant, entitled people that will demand you do certain things for them, and they'll give nothing in return. They won't even show their face. So I just don't even listen to those people. I don't have time for those people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it seems like you've established yourself or your boundaries as a creator well, or you know what you will and won't do. And again, it does seem to speak to a difference of like subscriber versus like when someone orders a custom clip. Like, you could still refuse the custom order, of course, but the cost is generally a lot higher. You feel a little more compelled to maybe do a custom order because it's like $100 something, rather than like someone who's subscribing for $13 and just hoping that you'll include this in your repertoire, or $9 rather. I got 13 stuck in my head. What kind of what do you have a genre of fart content you tend to gravitate towards, or what do you like making the most?
I really like doing the roleplay videos. I didn't like to do them for a while because I see a lot of like the cringy like acting videos for farting. And even though the farts are good, the acting is bad and it just feels very forced and scripted. And I always felt like I was one of those people, so I stayed away from doing that. But I kind of work on my abilities a bit, and I've gotten better at that, even if it takes a couple tries to record something, which is gets into a nightmare sometimes. I always stayed away from doing the acting stuff. I just did I did some nudity, some like very revealing outfits or whatever. I used to do that. I didn't used to speak, but now I do speak and do role plays in my videos, and those are some of my favorites to do because I really get to dive into like certain scenarios. Someone messaged me the other day and said, "Oh my gosh, you're like, what's his name? The Brad Jade of like videos. Like you're bringing his fantasies to life." And I love that. I love making stuff like that. It's just like because I don't really see a lot of people doing stuff like that are actually going into like full depth. And like I try to make my videos as good quality as possible. My acting's good. Make sure my farts are great. As of course, I can't have that. So even though it takes a lot of work, I still have so much fun doing that. And then when I'm done, I am something I'm generally proud of.
Nice, nice. And I'm sorry, is Brad Jade a content writer or?
He is a content writer.
Okay,
And he makes a
nice.
lot of stories, which are great.
That's awesome. Do you feel OnlyFans? And I think I already know the answer, but do you feel OnlyFans is like a two-way conversation between creator and consumer?
I do, because I almost like to think of it like a restaurant in a way. Some people don't understand this, but like it's like when you're going to buy a coffee in Starbucks, right? You're just craving a coffee. Obviously, something led you to buy their content. Something led you to buy the coffee. Something led you to buy their coffee, whether it's the location, the pricing, they have your favorite flavor. Something led you to go there than other places. But when you're a creator, you have to think like a business. You're like, why would someone want to buy my stuff? Is it because the price is good? Is it because I offer more stuff? Is it because I interact with my fans? You got to think like that. When you're just a consumer, there's a reason why you like a business more than another business. You might not know the answer. Maybe it's their price. Maybe it's just you have a loyalty account there. But everyone kind of has their favorite grocery store to go to, their favorite coffee shop, their favorite gas station. So you kind of got to think like that. You kind of got to look at the world, I guess you could say, just when it comes to OnlyFans or other creators. Like, why would someone want to buy my stuff? Or one thing I did when I was starting my account is like I looked at other creators that were in the fart genre as well, and I was like, why does this person have so many followers? What are they doing that this other person over here isn't? Like, what are they offering? What kind of bundles are they doing? So my mindset was in a way where I kept constantly thinking about why is this? How are they making money? And that's kind of what helped me as well.
Interesting. Was that something you took away from your time as in making music, or was it something you just picked up in life, or what made you think so business mindedly about this?
I think music definitely had a lot to do with it because you're 99% of the music industry is just marketing. Like whether you like to, people like that or not, it's marketing. Like you do your art, you record whatever you need to do, then you got to market it. And that's most of the time you're going to spend more time marketing it than you ever do creating something. So I incorporated that into my, into the fart world, which some people didn't understand it. I was called an industry plant by someone, which was very interesting. I never heard that before. But it's a community that's very raw. So for me to like basically try to market myself in the community felt weird, but it worked. Like I got fans, I got money, and someone did say I'm very good at marketing myself. I guess I am, so that's good to hear. But yeah, music definitely helped a lot because you have to everything from imagery, from how you promote it to even just the people like everything is gonna correlate to making your numbers go higher on certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's an interest. Are you like someone claiming you're a plant from big fart corporations, like trying to come in and become like this is going to be their new battleground, the fart fetish space?
Yeah. So funny story about that. Like back in May, actually, like that's really what happened. Someone thought because I was doing well on certain platforms and this stuff, and it happened so quickly. Like someone really thought like I was like a big model that like was sent to like put into the fart community forced upon everybody, which sometimes I wished that was the case so I could blame it all on somebody else. Be like, this is someone else's fault. But like, no, I'm not sitting on any checks. Like, I would love to be doing that, but I'm not. So that's not what happened. And I kind of got canceled for that. I also got my account hacked on Snapchat, which is why my Snapchat username is I quit farting, because I got hacked and they changed my username. They deleted some stuff, which I got my account back safely. But yeah, it was weird. It was weird. I don't know why that happened or where that came from.
Damn, that is some weird. That is some conspiracy shit. Because I mean, like, I get, like, there's definitely things to be wary of. I would not expect this is where corporations are going to start making a big mark. At least not this niche. Like, maybe porn, maybe they'll buy the clip stores or whatever. But I do not see them like taking over the fart fetish niche specifically. That seems absurd.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting, and nothing like that ever happened again. Which I'm very thankful for. But that was the most bizarre thing, because I have my personal account, friends with my fart account on there. So I saw what the person was posting, and they're posting like the weirdest pictures, and they changed my username, and they didn't unadd anybody, thank God. But I was just like, what is going on? And I was like, this might be the end of my account here. So I did have a backup account, but I got it back. But it was the weirdest. Like, I don't know why someone thought that. I kind of get it, but I don't get it at the same time. It's so weird. And I'm wondering, like, why me? There's people with more followers than me, like, that have more, I guess you could say, videos that are better quality. So I don't know why I was the target. I guess he didn't like me for some reason.
Yeah, super weird. Super weird. We talked a bit about the expectation in the gay fart fetish community to like have some personal fart trading videos, and I was curious if you could expand on how you draw that line between being a good content creator, but a good businessman as well, and I guess giving back to your community in the way that's expected.
I guess it all comes down to, like, when play fair. Like, just always play fair. Like, if you have content, if you have OnlyFans, always post. Make sure the prices are right. Don't give anything out for free, because someone might say, I don't have any money to pay for this. You can work with them for prices, but don't give anything for free. Because once you start doing that, you're going to break like this habit. You're going to start a habit of like giving more people stuff for free. So just don't do it for any type of business. Don't give someone for free. Work with them. Maybe give them a bundle. Do something, but don't give anything for free. That's like you wouldn't already give for free. But at the same time, give them free content. Like, send them videos, post on your public accounts, interact with everybody, like, talk to them. Just maybe ask them how their day is going, talk about some stuff outside of farting. If they compliment you, take the compliment. Don't be like an egotistical bitch like some people I know are. So yeah, just be down to earth while at the same time being ethical to yourself and fair. So I guess that's the best advice I could give.
Absolutely. Well, and it's smart too, because the thing I think people maybe forget as a consumer, what you don't understand maybe about free content, or what they don't understand, is that it is basically marketing. It's basically trying to put it in your head like, oh, this is another reason why you might want to watch me. This is another thing I have, and it's an enticement. It's a alluring factor. So it's almost a good business to do, like not free content obviously, but trailers or clips or something like that, so you can promote it.
Yeah, and I think one account that does great job at that is they're, I don't want to say they're like a fart fetish account. They kind of are. They're a mix of everything. Like, Fart Fetish Feet is Stomp Crush, and what they'll do is they'll have like people from the Fendon community like come to this set to, like, I guess you could say, like, either torture someone with like farts or feet or whatever, and they'll make like a whole actual like camera set video of it, and they'll film it in like this giant arena studio, which I found it very interesting. First of all, I was like, okay, I think a lot about that, because I'm like, okay, there's no way this person just has this boxing arena just for this, because there's medals in the back and stuff. So I think some dude owns the place and like is doing that as a side hustle. Honestly, it's based in England though, I think, or Scotland or something like that. But I found that very interesting. Like, the way they market their videos is very clever. Like, they'll show a clip, the best clip, then they'll show some other clips, and they'll put like posters on who's going to be on the show next. And they just go from there. And I don't really do that. I mostly just post little clips of what I'm going to be posting, but it's just about that. It's all about how people are going to perceive it. And especially when we're living in a world where people's like attention spans are very low, you want to grab their attention quickly. So it's all about that too. Like there's a lot of psychological stuff that goes into it as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's like I don't like being a consumer. I don't enjoy the consumer role. So I'm pretty wary of that stuff. But like I'm well aware of because I run a business as well. I'm well aware of the need to do that and attack those whether they be pain points or what have you, is to get that consumer to at least look at the content, get an impression, and then maybe you have a conversion as well, if you want to use industry jargon, I suppose.
Yeah, when you study business, it really you really are in marketing, you really start to, as a consumer, understand your own habits as well, and also kind of understand how smart businesses are, just with like psychological and like everything about that, when it comes everything from colors to your attention span. It's all correlated together, so you become more aware, which I became more aware. I still spend money, but I'm more aware of what I was before.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. This is a topic we have discussed on the show before. Maybe we even touched on it on this episode, but outside of the fart fetish community, there are still people that may post videos on TikTok or YouTube simply because they find farts funny or whatever, or they are proud of farts or whatever, but they don't have a fetish. And then from here we have some of the, I guess they're fetishists that come in, but they have no tact in the way they either make creepy or sexual comments on videos that are inherently not sexual. Like they're essentially sexualizing non-sexual videos. I unfortunately, this seems inevitable. It goes back to what I said about leveling up the community. Like certain people maybe will and are willing to be more introspective or think about what they do. But I think there will remain, whether it be outside of English speaking countries where it's a little different. Like I see a lot of Indian posters, for instance, that maybe are a little tactless and it could be an awareness thing. But what do you think? Is there anything that can be done about this in a way that can be done from our side? Like obviously the creators can delete the comments and stuff, but is there a way we could like be a shield?
It's definitely an epidemic that's going on. Like there's so many TikTokers and even YouTubers that do farting content as like comedy or like they fart here and there. But there's a lot I know on TikTok that are like just they make farting content because they find it funny or they like maybe like make jokes about it, and they do that. Obviously it's not their whole what they do, but it's definitely a big part of what some of these people do because they love to do that. A lot would seem that as childish and immature, but then again, it's their humor. If they want to find it funny, they can post it. But as my boyfriend always says, is there is one thing our community is good at, unfortunately, is you'll have people that are very respectful, understanding, and normal, but then you'll have people that are almost like NPCs, and all they can think about is just getting off. They only say a few sentences like, "Are you gassy? That's hot," this and that and the third. But I think I never really understood that either, because I can always tell when something's made out of comedy versus like fetish work, which even if I find them both equally hot, I can always understand what's the difference. So I'll never go out of my way to like make someone that I know is in the community feel uncomfortable or say something that I know they will not like. But unfortunately for other people, especially on the gay side, which I hate to admit, but that doesn't just cross their heads. They find someone that does a farting video and they automatically just start speaking their mind. And maybe it's because of the internet, you can kind of say what you want. You're behind a screen, you're not saying it to someone's face. But that has weirded some people out. Like people have made videos on stuff like that that are comedic, and then they quit the content or they quit making content altogether because they're weirded out, which I don't really blame them. If I wouldn't understand. There was this one creator that I talked to on TikTok. I'm not gonna say his name, but I spoke to him. He's not in the community, but he was like, "Why is everyone asking me to keep doing fart videos?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And like people keep sending me messages asking me to do this and that and the third, and like it's getting weird. And then I was like, "Oh, our community found you." So I basically had to explain that to him, and he kind of was weirded out by that. But at the same time, he was like, "Okay, that's fine. Just don't put me in that situation." Which was like, yeah, that's completely understandable. But I don't know what to tell you. Like, you could either keep posting what you want to post or stop, but you're not going to filter out all these comments. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's super like that is such a it's such a fair statement to be like, don't sexualize me like I'm not wanting to be sexualized. And like you're just there like explaining it. But it is unfortunate that we just like this aura has to unfortunately follow us in terms of like commenting. Like it's almost like someone did a Twitter test where they posted about Findom or something else, and a bunch of bots automatically responded as they expected them to do. And it feels like that. It feels like when these videos come up, suddenly these bots come out, and you said NPCs, essentially the same thing in this sense. And they just, those comments immediately fly up on the video. And you know what? I think the only thing we can do maybe is, and this is why I speak more to like more people have to know more fetishists, is the only way to combat that, and maybe it'll go away at that point too, is more people know us, like more people like through this show or through people talking to their friends or what have you. More people become aware of the fetish and know that this is just the creepy sect rather than the full. It doesn't paint the whole fetish with this creepy brush.
Yeah, definitely. And there's definitely like an iceberg when it comes to fart fetishist. Because like we're a very unknown, like people know we exist, and we're definitely more common than what people think. We're definitely a bigger fetish than what others are. But the media does not. The media gives foot fetish a lot of attention, and it gives stuff like BDSM a lot of attention, whipping or whatever, like stuff like that. Even diapers, it gives them a lot of attention. We don't get any of that. And the most you'll find is like a journalist writing an article saying, there was this one man that likes women farting, and that's fart fetish. Like people that don't really understand the whole thing, which, yeah, there is a lot of men that like women farting. There's different people that like different things. There's a straight side and a gay side, and people that like other things in between. But, you know, if you were to like look it up on Google not knowing anything about it, you'd find those articles. Then you could dig deeper, and you'll find forums, you'll find videos, and eventually you'll make your way onto like the bottom of the iceberg, where I like to call like the Visfit in that Twitter section with the gay farting. But from the above the surface, it's very broad, and there's not much talk about it at all. So even if you would like to research it, you got to be specific on what you want to find, because if you just do a Google search, you're not going to find too much.
Absolutely. That's why I'm very eager to make sure this show ranks SEO wise and what have you as best I can, because I mean, this is why I went to talk to her, I mean, just briefly on their live stream, but I heard the Dinks with Kinks podcast that just did a Proctophilia in December, and I listened to the episode, and I was hoping and praying that they got some new information, and they didn't. They read I'm not aware of the article they talk about of the two fetishists, one straight and one gay, and then they obviously covered Brad in the Mark D. Griffiths case study. But that was it. And but the only reason I spoke to them and wanted to reach out to them is because they kept saying, we don't have a lot of information. We want you to reach out, this and that. So I'm like, yeah, fuck you. I'm going to reach out. Not fuck you, but like, I'm going to reach out and talk to you. And they're really cool. Like, I appreciate the coverage they did, but that's my, irksome is not the right word here, but that's what irks me is, this is a new podcast, just came out, and they're still finding the old information when, like, I'm not saying this show is the greatest thing on earth, but like the interviews we've had on this show, I think give much more insight than any of those articles, many of them poorly written, some of them okay, some of them are just covering the Brad case study. Like, that's the thing. It's basically, they're just circle jerking the same information around, and I'm trying to like wedge in this new information as much as I can to change the conversation, I guess, is what I'm attempting to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially from the gay side, you have to dig deep. And when I figured I had a fart fetish, I used to read those articles online because I wanted to find out more about myself and make sure I wasn't like psycho. But that's all I got. Like people saying, "Oh, it's mostly straight men. It's mostly this and that." And I kind of felt that was kind of crushing for me a little bit because I was like, "There's probably not many people that have the same sexuality as me, as even just a bisexual man, or like just that would like the same stuff that I do." And then I entered the Twitter world, and it's humongous. Like, and it still fascinates me that that mainstream media or anything like that doesn't really know about us at that point because we're humongous, we're huge, we're so many creators. Some of us are verified, like actually verified on Twitter. Some of us actually make livings off of our content. Some of us make good art. Some of us are very like we're humongous. Like we're a small little place where we kind of everyone knows each other, but it's humongous community. Like it's huge. Like so many followers, so many people, so many like people that are into the same thing, which I'm always puzzled like why I think people even are just ignoring the fact that it exists, or maybe we're not big enough yet to get to that point. But it's like, wow, like just being on Twitter and OnlyFans and stuff made me realize how big the community actually is and how vast it is too. And I was
Absolutely.
like, wow, it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. When you're right in what you're kind of implying there, it's really a disservice to the gay side of the fetish. You know, not to speak against my own side, but like in my maybe grass is greener estimation of the gay community, that seems like a much more exciting and vibrant side of the community. Like if there were two parties and you had the gay fart fetishists and the straight fart fetishists, I'm not saying the straight fart fetishists would necessarily be boring, but there would not be necessarily a lot of partying going on, I don't think. Because one, there's very few or not any females there. Whereas the gay side, they have everything they need to be ready to, party down and enjoy each other's company, I think, in a much more vibrant and joyful way. Human way, I guess, maybe even to say. But yeah, I think that's to not, for articles and for other sources to not cover that side, or to not give it any credence, I think is a real disservice. And I'm glad we've talked to gay fetishists, including yourself, on this show, to get that perspective and really clear that up, because it is important.
It is important. Recognition is important. At least knowing that they're not like a freak, and at least knowing that they exist is going to make them feel better about themselves. Because a lot of people have these ideas like, oh, what I feel is not normal. Like, I wish I could be attracted to normal stuff. Even just like, back in the day, just like being gay, like gay recognition was such a taboo thing. And it kind of still is, but we're getting better at it. Obviously, a fetish is way different than having your sexuality accepted and getting married. But, still, like just something small like that, just knowing that you're not alone and that you're not a freak would make someone feel a lot better about themselves. And having a sense of community that they can find is going to make them feel better as well.
Absolutely. Definitely. You mentioned, you brought up to me, this is not something I hear mentioned so much on the straight side. I don't think I've heard it mentioned on the show, but you talked about the concept of fart meetups, and if they're cheating. For my sake, could you expand on like what a fart meetup might be in this context?
Well, it's different for everybody. Some people, obviously, if you have a fetish, you're sexually attracted to it. And when I started my relationship, I wasn't really planning to do meetups, but then me and my boyfriend really talked about it, and we had a deal where it was like, if we don't have if we're all clothed, we're not trying to do anything sexual, like even if it's like oral or vanilla while we're doing the farting, and if we're not like ejaculating, then we're fine. It becomes way less. We're still enjoying it, but it's way less sexual. You know what I mean? It's not like we're out there trying to have sex with somebody and no one's touching us to get off. Like, we're kind of just hanging out, if at the most, as friends, while incorporating farting into it. But I've talked to a lot of people that do have partners or are in a relationship, and they do go on some fart meetups. And some people do see it as cheating, which I understand, because if you have a fetish that is sexual, obviously, if you can't provide that for them, like if you're like someone that says like, oh, I love my boyfriend to death, but I would never do that for him, then maybe you'll feel better about him going to do that, knowing he still loves you and will come to you every night. But if you're someone with the fetish that can provide that for him, and he's wanting to go out and do it with other people, that could be kind of hurting because you're like, okay, well, he found someone that he can do it with. Why was he want to run off other people? Like, they're hotter? Do they have better farts than me? Like, are they sexier than me? But my boyfriend also said like we would only do a very specific people, like people that we're comfortable with, that know us, that wouldn't try to get into a relationship, because people have tried to get in the way of us, and other people like on the gay side that are in relationships publicly on there. But like, I guess the bottom line is this for us, making it as least sexual as possible. But I guess at the end of the day, it's about what do you and your partner see as cheating. Like, I wasn't too fond of the idea at the beginning, but then I was like, you know what? Okay, well, that makes sense. And he's proven to me that he cares about me through his actions and do many things as well. So I don't really have to worry about if he likes me or not. We've been dating for 6 months. So if he was going to lose interest, he probably would have already done it by now. You know, I always think about that. So I'm like, okay. And he would never do anything without me knowing. Some people do find this weird, but I have access to his Twitter account. He has access to mine. I don't go on there and checking everything he does. Like, every time he gets a DM, I'm not on there checking it out. But I barely even go on there. But it's just a matter of like breaking that barrier between distrust by having that access. Kind of removes like a mental wall off of you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a problem if you want to look for my phone because I'm not hiding anything, and I don't think he would either, because he tried to make his password my name. So, you know what I mean? It's just about you communicating with your partner. Would you be comfortable with that? And if not, tell them why. It's just about trust and communication. Like, if you're in a relationship and you do see that as cheating, let them know. Then they won't do it. If you don't, that's fine. Me personally, as long as it's not really sexual, I don't really have a problem with it. And if I'm there, I don't have a problem with it. You know what I mean? I would feel weird if you went off alone and did that. But it's just about like you as a couple, you know what I mean? Because I talked to some people and they're like, oh yeah, it's cheating. It's not. Because at the end of the day, it's a sexual fetish, and you're getting, I don't want to say you're getting off, because that's not always the case, but you're definitely getting some sort of pleasure from it. But then again, like I said, if you're not trying to like get deep into it with them, then it shouldn't be an issue. Keep it as least sexual as possible, and make sure that you have your boundaries straight and that they both know that.
Absolutely. I'm a little curious or confused. I guess, what is the impetus for wanting to meet up? Like it's like your partner's just not into farting or sexuality at that point in time, and thus, you know, going out to meet someone who is, or what? Like I almost wondered if it was in the consideration of you as a content creator. Like, you might meet up with someone in the context of a creator, as a, you know, whether it be a service or just for fun or whatever. But you're almost like, for me, it sounds similar to a poly relationship, but like almost non-sexual poly. But do you have any clarification on that to help me out?
Yeah, so we would never do anything. I can provide stuff for him, and he can provide stuff for me sexually. Our relationship is closed off, and some people do get confused about that. But I guess you could say, like, the purpose of a meetup, if you're single, is to get the satisfaction out of someone else. Like, if you find them attractive, you can go meet with them. They can give you that satisfaction. If you're taken, like, for us, it's less about getting satisfaction because we can do it for ourselves. It's just more about like meeting the people, like actually meeting our friends on the internet that we've known for so long. And, you know, and it's more or less like, oh, I want to smell your farts so bad. It's more of like, I want to smell your farts. Like, I just want to know what that feels like. That's what it's more of like, you know what I mean? It's more of like a curiosity that's not really sexual, if that makes any sense.
I see. I think where I was having a breakdown is, it almost sounds like, the way I was taking it is almost like how, you know, in a straight relationship, sometimes they don't want your female partner doesn't want you hanging out with male friends. And I was wondering if it was something like that, where you're in a gay relationship and you're not allowed to have other guy friends, but you're saying it's a little bit deeper than just a platonic hangout with guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and it pretty much is a platonic hangout at the most, you know. You know, I would never let, like, some people will find that controlling. Like, I think relationships with boundaries and that are set up in a way where you don't put yourself in a situation that you could hurt one another, I think that's good. Like, my boyfriend is very clear on what he wants. I'm very clear what I want. And we both communicate with each other about what we want. We also, in our relationship, outside the farting, we also have a place and time to do it. So like, you know, we'll have times where we're trying to be cute as a normal couple and stuff, and we just won't incorporate any of that at the moment. So it's like our relationship is like fairly normal, but also it is a not normal relationship at the same time because we're both on Twitter. We both have people constantly messaging us. We have people that probably do want to sleep with us, but you know, I think what's graceful about him that I really liked is like he has not really been tempted to do anything with anyone else, which I find really, really good and very gives me a lot of hope too. Because it is easy to kind of cheat in a space like this when you have so many guys around you that are attractive. Because on OnlyFans, I know a lot of people that are very that are regular fans and talk to someone, but also get the stuff that like says, "My boyfriend will never do this for me. I wish I had someone like you." You know, these men that are in relationships that are generally dishappy with their current situation. And I just figured like the amount of like just paying to talk to me or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, I wouldn't ever want my boyfriend to feel like he's so disconnected from me that he has to talk to some stranger online to do that, and I wouldn't do that either.
For sure, for sure. There seems like maybe I'm trying to put this as clear as possible, or try to understand this as best as possible. Is it seems like there is a third option in like the platonic scale for fart fetishists, and maybe depending on your relationship setup as well, is that there's platonic with farts, and then there's non-platonic, obviously. But like it seems like there is a the non-platonic with farts is the one where cheating could be considered depending on the situation. But then I come to this matter of like, what if you like went out to a cafe with a guy or lunch with a guy and like he accidentally farts, like that wasn't in the intention, like, and you may still be aroused by it, but it wasn't the intention to have a platonic with farts meetup. Like, how does that, is that just all like a mental understanding of what is right and what is wrong? And I mean right and wrong in the context of the relationship, or like, is there more to that?
I guess so, yeah. Because I'm not polyamorous, obviously. I could never do that. I mean, he's not either. We did get into a few arguments about that before. Because, like I said, like I always go by the thing, like anything I would consider cheating is talking to other people you find attractive, trying to get satisfaction from someone else, sexually or just emotionally, trying to hide stuff from your partner. I would consider stuff like that cheating, or even just straight up sleeping with someone else. I'd consider that cheating. But when you are just friends with someone that you're not really sexually attracted to, of course you could find them attractive and you might, but you don't have any desire to sleep with them. And you just kind of like fart as like bros, I guess you could say. And it's not like a thing where you're on the bed farting on someone's face to jerk off to. It's just like, oh, we're playing video games on the couch and you let one rip. That's kind of what it's like. It's not like, oh, come in our bed, we're here waiting for you type of thing. So that's kind of where the line is. You know what I mean? Of course, they can find it arousing, but then it's like, okay, well, some people have female friends and they probably want to go touch her breasts and they find that arousing, but he's not sleeping with her. So would that still be cheating? It's, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's that was something I tried to. I kept asking the question on a couple of episodes, but I could never get it quite right. And I think that was the clearest way to put it. Like the emotional, like of course there's like penetration and what have you is a more obvious form of cheating. Or sexual contact, kissing, whatever. But yes, going to someone else for an emotional thing, or to like, if you have a problem with that partner and you're going to someone else to talk about it, like, yeah, that could definitely be or definitely probably would be cheating, because it's you're not going to the source of your problem. So I think that helps me. That does definitely help me understand the difference a little more. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Would you say there's a kink scene where you are, and is it a scene you've been out into? Have you explored it?
Not exactly where I am, but in Baltimore, which is not far from me either. I live like an hour from there as well. There is something called the Baltimore Playhouse, which is like a fetish nightclub. And I think farting did just get incorporated into it, where basically, for anyone that doesn't know how basically a kink house works, depending on which ones you go to, there's different ones. But I know the one here, you can go with a partner or alone, and you could find someone there. And basically what it is, they have different, like, I guess, like sets of stuff you can do, like BDSM stuff. They have stuff where if you want to do feet stuff. They also have farting stuff now, I guess, for fart fetish. Like they have like some people have like the gas mask fantasy, or like being trapped in a box fantasy, or being stuck in leather fantasy. So they have stuff like that you can use. Everything's sanitized, it's not cross contamination. I've never been there, but I did have an old manager I used to work with that used to go there frequently. So that's kind of what it is. It's kind of like basically like just what it sounds like, a playhouse for fetishes. And if you don't have anyone to go, if you can find someone there, you have to be 19 to go, which I'm old enough to go, but I'm not going to go to a place like that because I have a boyfriend now. But yeah, like there's those places in certain cities. They are very underground though. Like you're not going to drive down the highway and see a sign for, oh, Baltimore Playhouse right down there. You got to find it through someone else or on the internet. So the building itself is in a warehouse outside of an Amazon building. So you would never know it was there, but it's there. But every major city has one.
That's a and that is a I'm assuming gay focused community, gay focused venue.
Well, anyone can go. Anyone can go.
Really?
They're inclusive to everybody.
Interesting.
If you do want to find another gay person, I don't know how though to go about, because I know a lot of people I've talked to that have attended there went with someone already. So I don't know how you would find someone that tries to go there, but straight people can do it. Gay people, everyone's kind of separated from each other. Like there's like a section in the place where you can like mingle, just normally, and then there's like other areas where you can go privately to do some stuff. The only thing though, they don't want full on sex. They don't want you to do that, which it can happen in some scenarios, which I get, but it's more just like a recreational place to explore your fetish with someone or someone else with the proper equipment to do so in a safe environment. It's not really like a sex house party where you'll find someone to fuck and take to the bedroom. That's not what it is. There are some that are like that, but the one near me is not like that. So yeah, there's different types and different rules and stuff. I know for COVID it did shut down because you can't be having that stuff. But yeah.
Well, interesting. I've been to dungeons before, but like you say, they're everywhere, and we do have dungeons here. But like the fact that they're actually catering to fart fetish, that's surprising because I'm in Los Angeles. It could not be more vanilla kink here than possible. Like, yeah, one of the dungeons has a shower, but you can never use it during any of the public play parties, which would be, for like golden showers. And that's really the furthest out they go. Like they don't have like a queening seat or anything that would indicate any kind of face sitting or farting play. Like they have the generic stuff that you'd expect you could film a movie there and be like, oh yes, this is a BDSM dungeon. But the point is, like, it's very interesting that you say that the club in Baltimore is catering to fart fetish. Like maybe you don't find a partner there, perhaps, if you're just going for pickup play. But that's damn, that's very cool. Like I don't know how to well, I have no impact on the LA like fetish kink community because I'm not like because I don't share a lot of the interests. I have no like sway. Like I don't like what it's mostly rope and impact, just the generic stuff. I've talked about it on this show before. Anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent, but that's really cool. That's super cool that that is specifically catering to the fart fetish and even foot fetish, because that's not here either. Like, sure, you could get on one of the racks or the bed, and now you're elevated, but it's really not. I wouldn't say catering to the foot fetish at all. And I almost never see foot fetish play happening either.
Yeah, well, it's very complicated too because it's not like some fetishes where you need equipment to work with. You could just sit on someone's face and rip. You know what I mean? It could be easy as that. But they do understand that there is other stuff to it. So I am very surprised they added that too. They're not really depth into it, but it is something that they're okay with. I don't know how they go about offering that, but I do know that is one of the fetishes they do acknowledge, along with piss and other things like that. So yeah, I'm very surprised they did. Obviously, I think they acknowledge it more on the straight side, obviously, but either way, it's still farting. So no one really cares what the hell you are as long as you're just being safe and having fun.
For sure. And they must have dominance over there, that off-ret, because I think that may be what drives some of it too. This is going to be a little more of a spicy topic, although we got into some. You mentioned wanting to talk about like male body images and insecure masculinity, and this is obviously big in topic right now because of Andrew Tate controversy, a lot of other manosphere figures, as it were. What's kind of your perspective on this and in body image and masculinity?
I think a lot of men are depressed right now in America and just in the world, and they're lost. They don't know what to do. They're told they can't talk about their feelings. And it's just becoming a huge mess, especially for gay men, for straight men, especially straight men. I think it's a lot of problems into one big problem, but I think the most obvious one is when it comes to talking about feelings and stuff like that. For that to be very taboo is become very dangerous because you should be able to talk to someone. But also, I noticed when it comes to, males expressing themselves on their feelings, if they write a sad song or a sad rap and they put it to the world, they won't get criticized. If they go to the gym, pump out their arms to let out some anger, that's fine too. But as soon as they try to talk to someone about it, then it's just like they're considered weak and they should just hold it in, which I find very ironic. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're allowed to do this. You're allowed to express yourself through these other manners, but you can't actually go and sit down and have a conversation with someone. Which sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes you just need to rant to somebody, even if they're not really listening. You just need to talk to someone about it. And I think like as long as men have a figure in their life that they can go to, whether it's a parent, a partner, a best friend that they can express their problems to, I think that's more than enough. Because they do say you just need one person that'll listen, and it's true. But a lot of people don't have that. And that's also become very scary as well. A lot of people don't have that specific person that can talk to you about their problems. And, in a world where it's all about betrayal, in a world that is cold and that could stab you in the back, or someone that may not agree with everything you say, it is hard to find that person that you can get personal with or can be vulnerable with, because that person could switch up on you or see you differently on a certain way. So you really got to be careful, like being vulnerable. But at the same time, you just got to find out who you can trust and who you can't, which is just how life is, at the very least. And when it comes to Andrew Tate's popularity and this stuff, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised one bit. Like, I'm not an Andrew Tate fan. I don't love his content, but when you listen to some of the stuff he says, some of it is true. And then I start to understand, just by like my knowledge on like psychological and stuff, why young men, mostly younger men, are very attracted to him, because he, can get stuff that most men are insecure that they need, like good looks, money, a lot of girls. And I encourage anybody to make themselves into a better person, that they feel like they're good enough. I do believe to be a good man in society, you do have to be a provider and a protector and stuff. But when it comes down to stupid things like, oh, you can't talk about your feelings, you can't paint your nails, you can't do this and that and the third, then that's where it gets toxic, when you start just judging people on very small things that have nothing to do with the base of masculinity. And I think that also contributes to it. But I'm not surprised, because there is a lot of male figures that a lot of men are not resonating with. And there is some, like, depending on the type of person you are, like I look up to a lot of music artists and stuff, but just on a regular basis, there's not a lot of people that a lot of men can look up to, which I think to look up to him is kind of dangerous in a way, because it shows we don't have a lot of role models. But yeah, it shows you where we are as a society when it comes to men's mental health and stereotypes and all this other stuff. It's kind of gone really to the point where it's gone downhill.
I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I don't have I didn't follow Andrew Tate. I don't really that's not, I don't care. Like I don't like him as a public figure, obviously, but
yeah, no.
I feel like, and this is not me blaming men, because obviously I'm a man too. Like I didn't have it. My parents didn't raise me. I raised myself.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't provide me a good example of what masculinity is on my dad's side, or even what not femininity, but nurturing on my mom's side. I got none of it. So I was on my own. I feel very possible that I could have been, and I said it on the last episode, I could very well have gone down the incel route and been like, this is all women's fault, and they won't talk to us and this and that. You're 100% right that there's not an encouragement of men expressing their feelings. I think that's changing. And I think, unfortunately, the men that are experiencing this have to change with it. I think what the problem with Andrew Tate is, for the good advice he is giving, he's also continuing to feed into old ideas that no longer really fit in society, in terms of like women's autonomy, for instance.
Exactly.
And you mentioned it earlier in terms of like, it's his business model to keep you on the dole, to keep you needing him, rather than encouraging men to, okay, your best friend won't talk to you. Maybe you need to reconsider that best friend, but I'm not saying that. Go find other people that you can talk to. Maybe you keep him as your best friend and you don't talk about your emotional stuff with him, and you do whatever you do together, but you have to go further. If you need that support, it's not going to come to you. No one is going to bring it to you. I found this out as a creator. I was a creator. That's kind of why, you went the opposite way. You're a musician and you're probably, I'm sure you're successful at it, maybe make a living at it. I was trying to make a living as a, creator or whatever. I never did it. So in a way, I feel like this is what I have to embrace, or this is my calling to embrace the fetish and be more open about it, maybe for other people, because I got nothing else. I tried to be my media person, and I just flat out failed. In other words, no fan base, no whatever. And I'm not saying I'm unique. Like, tons of people try and fail, but if I had been a famous actor or had done better or been more successful, would I have had the freedom to make this show? Perhaps not. But the point is to bring it back to the Andrew Tate thing. I think the problem with him and figures like him is they're trying to perpetuate a system that is no longer positive for the world, and they're essentially keeping men reliant upon them as part of their business model, which, for all the positives that Andrew may say, the capitalist nature of his business is the problem. He's not just in it for the helping of men. He's in it for the business. Whereas, I think there are other figures, like, I don't have many, but I think of like Beau of the Fifth Column on YouTube as probably a fairly good male figure. And there's other ones that I do or more aware of, but they're, further left, like Hassan or whatever, Vosh, other figures like this. And they have their problematic moments as well. But I think they're more positive male figures. But I 100%, like, society. The unfortunate thing for men right now is, while they have to change, that change is what is going to make society change as well. Like, literally, we have to disrupt men into, the way business and industry disrupt, like Uber disrupted taxis or whatever. We literally have to disrupt the way men are right now and reform it, because the problem is each individual man having this training. Oh, my dad wasn't very good, or didn't encourage me this, or didn't encourage me that. And we have to have all of those men get past that part, because it does suck. And it is a shame. And then, like, collect them together and, like, start, talking with each other. It's what I talk about in the microcosm of the fart fetish. The only reason they talk about porn is because they don't feel like they can have an emotional feeling connection with other men. And that's, Damien said it here, I think, on the podcast. And it's just true. It's a symptom of the larger problem of men not having good relationships, not being encouraged to have real introspective, emotional spiritual, whatever you want to call it, relationships with their friends, and it should be encouraged, and it should be not. I'm trying to figure out the word, but it's not shunned when it comes to you. Like when your friend comes to you needing help, you need to make sure you are there in the best way you can be for them, and not like pass it off as a joke or whatever, and be there for them. And that's the only way this will disrupt.
Definitely. And a lot of men are lonely. A lot of men are sad. I see it all the time on the internet when just my fans and stuff. A lot of them will talk to me, and I'll talk to them because I know I've been there. And I'm not saying like I'm any better than most of these people, but like I see how sad men are. I see how depressed a lot of these boys are that I talk to, and even just I see on a daily basis. And it almost crushes my heart to know that they're at a point in their life where they almost lost all hope. Growing up, I had a dad, and he was like, but he worked out of state. And even though he made a lot of good money, he never really like took the time to like teach me life lessons, what it's like to be a man. My older brother had a lot of mental issues growing up. So he was not too much of a role model either. My mom was always there, and my mom taught me a lot of good stuff, and she kind of ran the house, and she was the strong one. As long as I can remember, my mother was always the strong one in the household. And then my mom and dad got a divorce, and that's when I eventually moved, and then I started living with her just alone because my brother got to the point where he could live on his own. And so I never really had any like prominent male figures in my life, and a lot of people didn't either. A lot of people, like 1 out of 4 homes in the United States, are fatherless. And I think that's a real crisis too. Like we don't have men in the household anymore. We don't have anyone that young boys can look up to, that children can like rely on, that wives can, see as a protector and a provider and just as a companionship. Like that image has gone away. And I think that's definitely part of the issue. But just like a lot of boys and men just don't know what they want, who they are. And it is very sad because as much as we have all this like, feminist power, which I'm very thankful we can get a lot of stuff out of women now, but a lot of boys I feel like are now lagging and getting behind on a lot of stuff. And it's sad to see.
Absolutely. There is something to be said. Like the people who are criticizing the left for not having the right language to speak to these problems are correct. I think, and especially more mainstream like Democrats or whatever, there's a idea to just ignore it. Somebody I watched recently said it just doesn't fit the narrative. Like these are right-wing issues, and which is stupid. These are human issues. They shouldn't be political. But unfortunately, in the system we have, which is problematic in so many ways, this is one of those areas where it's like we've politicized male issues to be a right-wing thing, and the left, quote unquote, as it were, has a tendency to look at like feminism and other issues, which are vitally important, trans issues, all vitally important as well, and yet has, I guess, seeded the ground of men's help to some unscrupulous figures. I'm sure there are maybe good positive people on the right side, but the ones we know about, the ones that get the attention, tend to be the some of the worst, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And and when you are lost, because I was told like I'm just now dealing with some of my problems, but also a lot of guys don't know what it is they need. A lot of guys don't know what's causing their problems, and sometimes don't even know what they need. So a lot of times it's not entirely their fault that they won't speak, because I was one of those people. I don't know what the fuck I needed. So I said what people told me to do, just work it off and try to ignore it. And even though that helped for a little bit, it caught up to me. And I don't want to say I'm in the best headspace I've been in a while, but I definitely gotten way better, which is good. But it's just a matter of like, what do they need? How do they conceive it? And yeah, mental health should be a topic for everyone. It shouldn't be like just like a left wing or issue. Like stuff like this should never be a debate. It should be like, this is happening. Male suicide is higher than ever. What can we do to stop this? But unfortunately, that's not the conversation we're having with people like that.
Yeah, it's I mean, politics is such a web that it's like it almost makes sense. Like of course you're not going to tackle human issues. You can barely tackle like the stuff that's in your field, but that doesn't negate the importance of it. Like whatever that's I mean that's again another reason for this show is it is to encourage mental health because I definitely had a unique upbringing. I'm not saying I'm the only one who had this upbringing, but mental health. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fart Fetish Podcast once again. We've got another great episode for you today, but before that, the Fart Fetish Podcast is available on fartfetishpodcast.com and almost all major podcast platforms. Look for new episodes on the first Friday of every month. You can also enjoy fart stories, fart captions, and fart videos at thefartcloset.com and support the podcast at the same time. That's thefartcloset.com. And that's it for the intro. And now I'd like to introduce Master Jayden to the podcast. Master Jayden is a video creator and bisexual fart fetishist that's on today to talk about many important topics, including NPC video commenters, OnlyFans and marketing. And we both share some ideas on male self-image and the toxic influencers that have exploited disaffected men. We've got that and more on this episode of the Fart Fetish Podcast. Thanks very much for being here, Jayden. Why don't we start with a little about yourself and what this fetish kind of looks like for you?
All right. Well, I'm Master Jayden, and I've kind of been in the fart community for about, I want to say, I've been tumbling around as just a person on Cake and stuff for a few years, but I've actively started making videos about a year ago. Actually, Josh the Farter, he was friends with a friend that I met, and he's kind of the one that got me started with making videos and stuff and encouraged me. It just kind of blew from there, and ever since then I created a following for myself who are very loyal and very good. But the fetish for me has kind of always been there as a child. I want to say it almost came about when I was a young child, because my brother would have friends over and they would kind of fart on me and stuff. Just fart humor in my household was always very very prominent. So I think maybe that has something to do with it, and of course the cartoons and stuff I grew up with, because I grew up in the 2000s, so that's probably where a lot of that came from as well. But it was always kind of there. I just don't really know the point where I started to find sexual arousal for it.
Yeah, for sure. As someone who's also had it early on, there's a second discovery in terms of you have the fetish in your younger years, but you don't know what sex is. You don't really know what sexuality is. You're just kind of following this instinct. And then later, maybe you find, for me, it was finding a fart message board. I think it was the Queen of Lizzie message board was one of the early ones back in the day. And then, other forms came about as well and came and went and what have you. But some people, I think it's porn. Some people, there's many different ways, but there's that second realization that this is my version of sex, or this is another pleasure I get in addition to sex.
Yeah. For me, I started on YouTube when I started. Obviously, it was real life, having fantasies. Then as I got a bit older, I still didn't know what sex is, and I didn't know what that feeling was. But I used to go to YouTube videos, and that's back when kind of YouTube was very, they weren't as hard when it came to demonetizing and censorship. So a lot of the old fart videos that you might remember were still on there, or even just comedic videos were there. And that's kind of where I got my pleasure before I started moving into other areas and talking to other people.
Yeah. I had the similar Newgrounds and other sites, YouTube as well. But I don't think I spent too much time on YouTube. But Newgrounds I did.
Yeah.
And they had the one I mentioned on Twitter recently to somebody who had asked, Victoria, who had asked actually, was the Oops, I Farted Again. It was a Britney Spears parody animation. And it was quite prominent back in the day. What kind of aspects or themes would you say, or around this fetish, do you enjoy, or have it combined with the fart fetish for you?
Well, I feel for me, it was all about the attitude and kind of how, I guess Damien talked about in his interview a while ago, kind of the link to masculinity and stuff like that, and how it just kind of combined it, which I always found very interesting because growing up, it was always funny for a lot of people. But it was always considered ew, that's gross. If my boyfriend constantly did that or whatever, it would be disgusting. And I just didn't see it that way. And I guess if I were to grow up, maybe knowing that those thoughts I was having weren't as foreign as I figured they would be, I'd feel better about myself, I guess. But yeah, I always linked it to that. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like, I guess, the stereotypes we have, but also just the world I grew up in personally. Like that's what I experienced.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and speaking of stereotypes, I was going to say the experience you explain about kind of being bullied by your brother and his friends, or having them fart on you, whether it be bullying or not. I think many people's expectation for the origins of this fetish. And I mean, you're the first person I've heard on the show mention that. I'm sure there's people in the wild, or people, other fetishists that have had that experience. But it's interesting because there is such a plethora of ways to get to this fetish that I think it really leads more credence to it being inborn. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Definitely, because there's some people I